and me. So get over it.
I have been working, Molly. Molly is living proof.
Yeah.
A, I have been working, and two, you don't need to be
Yes.
talking looking like you got a pulpit behind you. You better watch your mouth. Let's go. Let's go.
All right. Max Kellerman is actually off today. Neek is in for him, guys, and we're here for a full 2 hours. So let's get this party started. We begin with the NFL. Here's the latest. The Chiefs and Texans rookies are set to report to NFL training camps today, yet there's a palpable concern by NFL players regarding a lack of communication of safety protocols for the start of the NFL season. A flurry of tweets were sent out yesterday by star players. Aaron Donald tweeting this: "It's a shame that the NFL doesn't care about doing their part to keep players healthy and safe. They need to make sure football can come back the right way. We have to look out for ourselves as well as our families. Hashtag we want to play." Drew Brees adding this: "We need football. We need sports. We need hope. The NFL's unwillingness to follow the recommendations of their own medical experts will prevent that. If the NFL doesn't do their part to keep players healthy, there is no football in 2020. It's that simple. Get it done, NFL." Russell Wilson also addressing the matter with a personal story. "I am concerned. My wife is pregnant. NFL training camp is about to start, and there's still no clear plan on player health and family safety. We want to play football, but we also want to protect our loved ones. Hashtag we want to play." Legitimate concerns by the players here, gentlemen. And I just want to add this. Raiders owner Mark Davis changing his tune. Initially, he was in support of still trying to have fans in stadiums this upcoming season. He now says there shouldn't be fans. And also, he doesn't even know if it's safe to play the season. A complete 180 by Mark Davis. Dominique, I want to start with you on this, not just because you're a former NFL player, but you're former president of the NFLPA. You've been in a lot of these types of negotiations. How worried should we be about this upcoming season? It feels like we're coming down to the wire here.
I think we should be very worried. We should be incredibly worried because I think the players are acting in unison and they're acting for what appears to be a noble cause. I think one thing that we underestimate is how much we matter as public, as fans, as media, and how these things turn out. Oftentimes, the public support turns against the players for whatever reasons. It feels like in this particular case, the public has no choice but to be on the player's side. If they feel that support, I could see realistically players deciding not to show up. And I know that the NFL has within their rights that they can demand that the players show up and they can potentially fine players, but the PA can always file a grievance for unsafe working conditions. And how could anybody argue that these working conditions are going to be safe? Like, we're in the middle of an unprecedented, or at least in a century, pandemic, and they're asking the guys come in with precautions that don't seem to be meeting their standards. And when you have the group of players that we've seen step up, it's players from all ranks. It's lots of star players. It's lots of guys who normally stay quiet. Guys like Aaron Donald, who's never really said much. Drew Brees has always been an outspoken union guy, so I'm not surprised by him. Russell Wilson invoking his wife and unborn child's health. Like, this is powerful stuff. These guys aren't just playing some little Twitter game. Patrick Mahomes, another guy who spoke up. These are powerful guys who seem to be very serious about how important it is that they are kept safe and healthy. And I know the NFL would suggest that they care about player safety, and I believe that they do. But I think that is lower on their priority stack than making money and getting out there. And the players made it quite clear that they want to make money, they want to play, but what's more important to them, obviously, is their health, because they're going to be at risk. And you can see that playing out in the fact that the players don't want to play any preseason games. That is money into the revenue that also gets split into the pockets of the players. The players at this point obviously care about money, but that is not most important. And this is just making the difference between the players and the owners very clear. And as long as the players can gin up enough support from the public, I think it's a realistic possibility that the players do not show up for training camp until their demands are met. It seems fairly easy for the NFL to try to meet those demands, and they're not doing so. And the last thing I'll say before I hand it off to you, Stephen A., is that I think it's important that we always understand that the players have the control in this situation. While the owners think that they have the power is influence, but control is actually execution. The owners can make demands, they can press buttons, they can pull levers, but what happens after they do that is decided by the players, and I think the players are starting to realize that right now.
Damian Woody, go ahead, man. Let me let you get in here first.
No, listen, I think I absolutely agree with Dominique. I think, first, for the players, this is not like the NBA. The NBA has this whole bubble scenario where they have all these guys isolated. You're talking about potentially 1,700 players that's going to be, have the freedom to roam about out and about in the public. The potential, the children going to school, potential to contract the virus, bring it home. Russell Wilson talked about his wife being pregnant. There are all types of scenarios that could play out with this whole pandemic. And, from a player perspective, there's a lot of things that the NFL hasn't even answered as far as questions about player safety is concerned. So if you're the NFL right now, you've had the most time out of anybody, because the other leagues, they were in their season, but the NFL was not in season. You've had plenty of time to work out these issues along with the NFLPA, and here we are on the precipice of training camp, and there's a lot of unresolved issues right now. And Dominique talked about it. Yes, the players more than likely will probably have to report. The owners can find them and have all these different scenarios that they can trigger as far as the CBA is concerned. But once you talk about filing grievances, I think the public will be on the player side, because we're seeing this pandemic affect millions and millions of people in this country. So this is something that the NFL is going to have to get right, and they're going to have to do it very quickly.
Well, let me say this. First things first, I'm definitely apt to defer to both of y'all, not just because y'all played in the NFL, but y'all are two of the most intelligent brothers that I know, and I'm proud to call y'all my brothers. But I will tell you right now, I would respectfully disagree with both of you in this regard. Take away some of the elite players, the Drew Brees, the Russell Wilsons of the world, and others. And what it comes down to is 1,696 players, the vast majority of them. 53-man roster, along with the 32 teams, 53-man roster on each team. And then you've got 5 practice squad players at least for each respective NFL team. So you do the numbers, and it comes down to about 1,696 players. More than 1,600 of them are going to need to play, and the NFL owners know it. Now, that doesn't give them a license to exercise a dereliction of duty and not put forth the necessary efforts to make sure that every safety protocol measure is exhausted. There is no doubt about that. But in the end, come the start of the regular season, they can fret over showing up to training camp. They can fret over preseason games. But when that NFL season is scheduled to begin, there is no doubt in my mind that every single one of the owners in the National Football League, the vast majority of whom are faceless, is going to go about the business of handling their business. And one of the reasons that I religiously bring up to Max Kellerman, guys, is this, because he makes a lot of valid points when he's arguing about these things. But I always counter by saying to him, if they had come to America and said, excuse me, we need you to sit out this amount of time because we'll have a vaccine by that time. And as a result, there will be a return to normalcy at that time. It's a lot easier to ask people to make the necessary sacrifice because there's a definitive end date to everything. But because it's up in the air and because we religiously see things moving, it's mobile, and adjustments have to be made. We're seeing in New York City the curve being flattened and deaths being at a minimum to what it is in Florida, Arizona, LA, Texas. The fact of the matter is, because it's so up in the air, people are not going to allow their life and their livelihood ravaged because of a maybe, regardless of how dangerous the situation is. It's incredibly unfortunate that that is the reality, but nevertheless it is. You got billionaire owners at the end of the day that are going to be about their bottom line. The NFL ultimately will get on the ball and address the safety protocols to the degree that it should, and they're going to be about making their money. The vast majority of players who haven't made tens of millions of dollars, if not more, they're going to ultimately capitulate to the situation because they've got families to take care of. And as a result, the season is going to go on. I get where y'all are coming from.
Yeah.
I understand that y'all are not saying anything that's wrong. You're absolutely right about what should transpire. But we all know that when the regular season starts, they're going to start
The players, the other 1,600 players. The 1,600 players, That's why I think media attention and public opinion matters, because nobody wants to be that guy. We're talking about a day and age now in the past where players would go on strike and some people would cross the line and be scabs, and they were just called nameless, faceless scabs. Can you imagine a scenario where all of the public is on the side of the star players, and then you're one of these other players who are saying, I'm going in anyway. I don't care about what Drew Brees says. I don't care about what anyone else says. Like, then those guys become the villain. I don't imagine that any of those guys are interested in doing that. They were
Can I
much
answer
rather
that, Dominique?
have solidarity with their group, of course.
The reason why I disagree with you respectfully on this is because it's one thing if we're just on the outside as a public, looking in and it's about them. But the problem is the same sacrifice that the owners will ultimately ask them to make is what the American public is doing every single day. You got people going back to work, working a 9 to 5. They don't want to go to work. They don't want to endanger themselves. They don't want to find themselves in precarious situations. But nevertheless, that's what they're forced to do because of it, which I think will dissipate the level of sympathy and empathy they might have towards those NFL players.
They don't have sympathy. Go ahead. What?
Go ahead.
No, listen. I think. Listen, Stephen A. Dominic and I agree that the season's going to play. There's no question about it. I mean, we're talking about mass sums of money that nobody's going to want to miss out on.
Right.
What this boils down to.
That's all I'm saying.
This is ultimately a PR battle, and Dominic knows this as well as anyone else. The NFL, they are masters when it comes to the PR battle. And what you saw from the players is that this is an all-out frontal assault as far as winning over the PR battle, over certain stipulations that the players would like to see in place in order for the season to be enacted. I don't disagree with what you're saying, Stephen A. I'm coming from the fact of from a PR perspective. To me, that's
let me give this to the players.
I think that's where the players can win.
Let me give this to the players, and Dominique, I'll give you the last word here. What I would say is it's our job